What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my main man, Jacob Punturi. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers got some back and forth in the TJ trade conversation, and we'll start there in a minute. But there are two interesting names that have already been deemed cut candidates this offseason. One of them, won't lie to you, total disagreement. The other one, there's an argument to be made. We'll dive into both. Jacob, it's a back and forth rainy one here in the Berg. It's been a day, but it's a good one. Great news on my end. Okay, massive update for those of you who knew. Finally got a new rug underneath the chair, so we are no longer slowly rolling backwards. For those of you who didn't know, I rearranged the office, as you could tell, and the one side of the room is slowly on a slant. So when that one was nuts.
Oh,
that one was crazy.
Week starting off with fireworks, baby.
They're getting too aggressive, if we're going to be honest. So I would slowly roll back the entire podcast, and I'd have to hold myself up. Finally got a new rug. We're not rolling. Great day. And with that, how you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good. I mean, it's a weight off of my shoulders to know that, you got the new rug, because I would check every now and then just to be like, is Noah like farther away from the camera now? Just wanted to make sure that he was still with us. And the slant and the slope didn't catch him too hard. But this is great news. The fireworks, I think, are indeed a worthy screen effect to celebrate this update. And I'm feeling good, man. The weather's a little crazy, but in here, in this basement, this weather controlled basement that I'm in, things are okay, man. So another good weekend of hearing about the Steelers. And yeah. I gotta say, I was equally surprised whenever I heard about some of these cut candidates that you wanted to get into this morning.
Yeah, it was not what I was expecting. We will create our cut candidates in the next week because training camp starts in a week and a half. But I don't know if I'd have either of these names on there. We'll dive into them. Let's start with TJ Watt, though. Right after the podcast on Friday, things got very interesting with the Pittsburgh Steelers and TJ Watt. First, this tweet came up from Andrew Filipponi. Quote, Pat McAfee Steelers insider Mark Caboli says the Steelers have inquired around the league to see what TJ Watt's trade value is, called it, quote, doing their due diligence. It's a big change in the TJ Watt discussion from a big-time Steelers insider. That stirred the pot plenty, only to be followed, I'd say 12-ish, 24 hours-ish later by Mark Caboli saying, quote, Steelers are still in a holding pattern with TJ Watt's contract extension, length of deal, guarantees, and total value. Basically everything, to some varying degrees, are the sticking points right now. Even so, there is no anticipation for Watt to hold out when camp starts on July 23rd, and there have been no inquiries made to other teams about trading him, according to sources. Basically, these are how high-profile and big money deals go. Seems like it could go down to the wire as it did in 2021. Stirred the pot by Andrew Filipponi, sent everybody into a bit of a frenzy for a couple of hours, thinking the Pittsburgh Steelers were getting dangerously close to actually trading TJ Watt. Caboli calms it down there. Take me through your 12-hour process here as that unfolds and where your head went during it all.
Yeah, so at first I was like, are you kidding me? Like, we're doing this as soon as we get off the podcast again. We're gonna have to just totally shift course. We're gonna, everything I said 12 minutes ago, not even 12 hours, but 12 minutes ago on that Friday seemed to have been irrelevant in the in the span of minutes when this little report came out. But then I started thinking about it further, and it felt more like the Friday news dump type of thing to me. And what I mean by that is, it felt, the more I thought about it, the longer I kind of sat with that, the more it felt in line with what sort of you and I have been talking about and saying for the past
Yeah.
couple of weeks. Like, yeah, things are in a holding pattern, and when things are stale and when there's no movement on either side, it makes sense that someone's going to try and do something to try and get some leverage, to try and push things along, whatever you want to call it. So,
Yeah.
the due diligence phrasing there is, I think, what set me off at first and sort of put everybody else into a frenzy. Due diligence can mean, a whole spectrum of things. It could mean they just had a friendly phone call between someone, another team. It could have
Great.
been the thing that, like, hey, seriously, like, if you wanted to part with a first round pick, like, we could make this deal done. Like, we can get this deal done. The range of what falls under due diligence is so vague and vast and umbrella that it was very concerning. So it kind of went through the emotions there from, oh man, this probably is going to turn into a trade situation. We are
Yes.
now getting away from this negotiation that is just business as usual. And then I slowly kind of came back to reality, kind of backed away from the edge of that cliff there and thought, you know what? I think this makes sense. The Steelers, as we talk about so often, especially Omar Khan, is the king of doing his due diligence. He talks about every scenario, every possibility. He's always making calls and he's ahead of the curve in that regard. Seems like that was more of the same while these two sides continue to sort of have this standoff of a negotiation. So I started off very afraid, Noah, I have to be very honest. But then I think a little bit before the update came on from Kabuli, where he kind of calmed things down, I was already sort of arriving at that conclusion as well. So not sure if you were mirroring that or if you were maybe a little bit more calm in the face of chaos than I was.
I feel the same way. And I was saying, I'll take it through the moment. I mean, that
Mhm.
comes out. I'm with my wife, and I'm immediately. I mean, I looked at her. She knew. She was like, "What happened?" I was like, "I kind of feel like I have to go write something about T.J. Watt. Potentially getting too close to the edge in this trade situation, because that's what it felt like it was coming to. But I dove into it a little bit. You know what I mean? I got as much information as I can, and I got the same thing. There have been maybe the Steelers have gotten calls, but they haven't entertained those calls. They haven't sat there and said, well, what would you know? They've shut pretty much all of them down. And can they get to a point where that's actually happening? Certainly, but it's not right now. And that's what immediately calmed my nerves was, okay, the Steelers are maybe out here with some weird news, and maybe they're getting phone calls, and maybe people are tossing crazy offers at them. You know what I mean? Answer the phone. As Omar Khan, we'll give you 2 first-round picks for TJ Watt. Like, no, that's the response. Right now, everything's pretty calm, but I felt the same way. Due diligence is a wide word, and doing your due diligence means that you are open to the idea of it happening. That's what it
Mhm.
meant. And to me, that was concerning. But again, everything I've been told is it's still very much so signed TJ, and that's expected to happen. Like, they are pretty far apart, but again, like, they aren't looking at it going training camp is the deadline. They're looking at it going week 1 of the NFL season is when things get serious in trying to have this done. But even at that point, there are loopholes to say this can still work in our favor. So everything is still rather calm. But I agree with you. I did hear that, which, I think that's where the frenzy came from. It was meant to cause a frenzy. It started one. Calming it down is good. And the fact that the Steelers aren't making phone calls is the most significant part, I think.
Yeah, it was really a kaboom moment in the in its essence. Because
Kaboom
yeah, I
is
mean,
Kaboom
he's
is the
crazy.
guy. He's hilarious, but what's hilarious is Kaboom is the guy that's notoriously known for being like misquoted in places. But
Mhm.
Kaboom is the guy that is like, he every time I talk to him, he's like, this guy said that I said this. I didn't say that. I said all of this. And I'm like, yeah, well, Kaboom, bro, you just look like a guy that, would have short sentences, and you'd stir the pot. It just looks like what you would do. You look like that kind of guy, buddy.
Mhm.
He is
Yeah,
notorious. It is a Kaboom moment. You're right.
yeah, and he does, and this is not my feelings at all, but I can see how some can take away some sort of like troll vibes from him.
Yeah.
But like he
Yeah.
is so particular about, and to his credit, he is incredibly like precise, specific, and particular with the language he uses, but it's still, as is the case in social media and just in general, like people get misquoted and taken out of context all the time. But like nowhere in that remark in that report from Kabuli, does he say anything along the lines of like a trade is close? This is different. It's just due diligence, which again, I could take that to mean they got as far into a negotiation besides making the trade call to the league, but it could have also just been Omar Khan shooting the shit with Mickey Loomis. You know what I mean? Like it could have been nothing.
Yeah, I agree. It's a Trevor Lawrence. Somebody's had a couple of beers. What would you give up for Trevor Lawrence? Would you even ever consider it? And then that turns into the Steelers have called the Jacksonville Jaguars, which, clearly did not happen. All right, let's move it on from TJ Watt here as we continue to talk about the outside linebacker. And let's talk about some cut candidates. There were two that popped up over the weekend, not from us, that were a little bit surprising. And I think both for different reasons. We'll start with the biggest one, the one everybody always cares about, the man that can't get enough updates on him. And I don't think there's been somebody asked about more on this podcast than this player. So if he were to be cut, in the words of Antonio Brown, business would not be booming. It would be bad. It would be bad. The Athletics, Mike DeFabo came up with the list. And don't get me wrong, like we were just talking about misquoting Kaboli. We'll make sure we quote all of DeFabo because he does make a good argument here. Talks about those who could be cut on the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason. And Cole Holcomb is one of those names. He said, quote, Cole Holcomb, who was once a everything 3-down inside linebacker before a gruesome knee injury derailed his career in 2023. I think Holcomb makes the team, but I'm unsure about the other. There is concern, obviously, of what's to come from Cole Holcomb and if he's all the way back. And I mean, what is all the way back after a knee injury as bad and as close to forcing him into retirement as it was? Now he's coming back. Is Cole a guy in your head that is a true cut candidate this offseason? You move on from Landon Roberts, Mark Robinson, Carson Bruner. I guess Malik Harrison has to be involved in that conversation after the deal he got. I mean, do you look at Cole Holcomb as a guy that is potentially on the bubble heading into training camp?
No, not at all. I was genuinely very surprised to see this. And again, not to keep things within context, like this was in regards to like the entire AFC North and like which teams could be looking at like maybe some surprising camp competitions and stuff like that. So it wasn't like him dropping this like kaboom or something like this about Cole Holcomb's status with the team, but still I was very surprised to even hear his name get mentioned because I just don't understand the reasoning unless he is not healthy. But if that's the case, then why wouldn't he have been released with a failed physical or like some sort of agreement they would have come to where he wouldn't still be trying to play football? That doesn't seem to be the case. He's been given a clean bill of health. He seems very amped to come into camp and to win snaps back and become a starter again. And yeah, there is depth at the position. I think it's one of the deepest positions on the team right now, including, Malik Harrison, I think is a big part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Still, all of that considered, I do not consider Cole Holcomb to be a cut candidate at all. At worst, he is one of your backups, and I take him over Mark Robinson. I take him over, a 7th round pick in Carson Bruner. Even with the health concerns, I see Cole Holcomb being a very important part of the team, whether it's as a starter or as a reserve player. Either way, it's on the 53-man roster. So yeah, I was shocked to hear this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I looked at the Steelers and said, he is your third. Malik Harrison isn't your third. You didn't go out and sign a 27-year-old guy who's been in the league that you know what you're going to get out of him and say, you're going to be the replacement to a Landon Roberts. No, that's not what you went out and did. You got Malik Harrison because he's a really good special teamer, because you needed quality depth. He's a guy we want to talk roster cut candidate. It's Malik Harrison as much as it is Carson Bruner and Mark Robinson. I mean, that's the bottom of the depth chart. Cole Holcomb to me has a spot, I think a big one. I think Cole Holcomb's a guy that they hope becomes a starter that has to challenge Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen for snaps. That's what they hope he could. Now, again, I don't know what happens after a knee injury that bad. We have no idea how that's going to affect him. And we've seen knee injuries derail contracts or careers many times. in the NFL. So it wouldn't be the first time, but I don't think the Steelers heading into training camp view Cole Holcomb anything less than an inside linebacker 3 that they hope turns into more. And I agree. Like, I have such a hard time, if I had to guess who the inside linebackers are, and tell me if I'm wrong, Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb, I'm going to guess Malik Harrison makes the team, and then I'm going to guess Carson Bruner edges out Mark Robinson, and they go rookie on the last year, or a guy on the last year of his rookie deal who never turned into more than a special teamer, who's a quality special teamer for sure, and maybe you keep Mark Robb over Malik Harrison if you feel comfortable in that. But Carson Bruner's a guy that's coming in here to play special teams, and if he's good enough to play special teams, they're going to keep him because you get him for 4 years instead of 1 in Mark Robinson. That would be my guess at the 5 that make the roster.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And again, there's not a lot of space in that scenario for Cole Holcomb to not be on the 53-man roster. So yeah, I think it's crazy to me. Yes, the injury is a legitimate concern. Like
For sure.
His athleticism could be completely derailed. His explosiveness could be gone. But in those 8 games or 7 games or whatever in the 2023 season when he came to the Steelers, that man was an explosive playmaker. He was a tackling machine, and he came in and really solidified the middle linebacking position in a concrete way. So, 2 years later, yes, he's recovering. I understand that, but I mean, he is still on paper and like based off of production alone, the second best middle linebacker on this roster. So, he's got to be around unless the wheels have completely fallen off, which if that is the case, that is incredibly unfortunate for him.
Yeah,
Barring
sure.
that, the man's going to be an important part of the team. I don't get it. And I think Mark Robb is probably the likeliest cut candidate. I think Malik Harrison's going to end up on the team, especially when they went out and offered him a 3-year contract.
Yeah, I agree. The other one is a corner that showed up this offseason. I don't know. I don't know what the expectations even were for Brandon Echols when he walked in the door. I don't think anybody knew who he was, to be totally honest. People thought he'd play the inside and replace Beanie Bishop. That didn't seem to be the case. Now he's an outside guy, kind of fell under the radar. The Pittsburgh Steelers went out. They got Darius Slay. They went out. They got Jalen Ramsey. Now the news is the expectation is that Ramsey's going to play on the outside and maybe not safety. And we're going to see what happens come training camp. But where we stand today, there is some uncertainty at the corner position. Fansided's Cody Williams says that Brandon Echols, a guy who signed a $6 million deal this offseason, may be on his way out. Quote, "It's getting more difficult by the day to see how Echols fits into the mix at all with the Steelers. See, some combination of Slay, Porter Jr., and Ramsey are expected to start on the outside and in the slot corner. Meanwhile, Beanie Bishop Jr. and James Pierre have the experience in Pittsburgh that gives them some sort of edge as backups, the same of which is somewhat true for Corey Trice Jr. That puts Echols in a position to battle with those 3 and 7th round rookie Dante Kent for spots in the depth chart." I will be very honest, okay? The moment I read this, I said, this is the worst reasoning for Brandon Echols to be a potential cut candidate. And it makes absolutely, first off, no sense. That's where I was going with that. First off, in what world do we head into training camp with James Pierre having an edge over Corey Trice Jr.? In what world does that happen? Like, how did that? No, the answer is no. Beanie Bishop being like the top tier number 1 dog still doesn't compute. You got Dante Kent, who's a draft pick, so there's a slight edge, and he's got to, earn it, obviously, but he's got kick return potential, and the Steelers already got a gear out of Beanie Bishop, which means that Dante Kent's the new flashy toy that they're amused by. Corey Trice, yes, I understand that one. You usually keep 5 corners at least. And if the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at going, they got their big 3 in Joey Porter Jr., Jalen Ramsey, and Darius Slay, you're keeping at least 2 more. Chances are 3. Maybe he doesn't beat out a Corey Trice. Maybe he doesn't beat out a Beanie Bishop or a Dante Kent. Maybe somebody surprises, but a 20, I believe, 5-year-old in the NFL who's got experience, who's got starting experience, who comes in here over a 7th round pick who hasn't been healthy, and an undrafted guy who got benched last year. I just don't think that he's the bottom of the barrel cut candidate when you look at the Steelers cornerback room. Do you disagree?
No, I don't. I think Brandon Echols is a cut candidate. I think that is a perfectly fine sort of point to make and prediction to give. This is where, like, we talked about this in other situations where, like, the farther removed you are, like, from a national side, like the same way that I cannot tell you the competition battles that are going to ensue at certain NFL camps in a couple weeks here, is the same way that, like, some people just completely miss on certain positional battles when they are not around. Like, and kudos to, like, the local people who are covering this stuff, who have a little bit maybe of a more realistic grasp on what the locker room is kind of like, because again, Brandon Echols is certainly a cut candidate. He doesn't have a guaranteed roster spot.
Yeah.
Is it because this team trusts James Pierre and Beanie Bishop in a legitimate way? No, that's not even close to it. It's because they don't have a clue who they trust in the secondary aside from the big three. So it's a complete competition. I think Corey Trice is, a pretty slam dunk choice to be on this roster. I think the Steelers love what he does, and I think it's hard not to, and especially whenever he keeps getting removed from opportunities due to injury, it's hard to not want to keep seeing what there is there and if there's more room to grow. So I could see Trice beating Echols out, and that being why he doesn't get a roster spot. I don't think it's going to be because Beanie Bishop and James Pierre just have a stranglehold on positions in the 53-man roster. I think James Pierre is like a great special teams player.
Fantastic.
He does nothing when he's in a larger role. It is just, he's shown that time and time again that even as an injury replacement, he becomes a liability on the field, aside from when he is like a gunner on special teams or on the kickoff return, something like that. So yeah, I like this idea that there is and agree with this idea that there is a huge competition, a very open competition in the secondary, especially for those supporting roles. I think Echols has a great chance of securing one and also a great chance of being cut. And it's not because of anyone else on this roster right now that he's battling for. That's my only criticism.
I agree. I think the only guy that the Steelers look at and say, we really want you to make this roster. Like, we really want you to be that guy, and that gives him a pretty significant advantage over the pack, is Corey Trice. But the moment Corey Trice gets injured again, Corey Trice is gone. And the Steelers are going to run out of patience. But Beanie's got no hold on it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have went out and got Jalen. Otherwise, they wouldn't have went out and got Cam Sutton and then benched him. Otherwise, they wouldn't have went out and got Dante Kent. Dante Kent is a 7th round pick, dude. Anything could happen. You know what I mean? He's the easiest guy to put on your practice squad. The easiest guy to put on your practice squad. Same with guys like Beanie Bishop. So look at James Pierre's here because James Pierre showed up halfway through last season after not making the team, or not making the team, but not getting a contract in the offseason, going to Washington, not making that team, coming back to Pittsburgh because they were desperate, and then going somewhere else. And I don't look at his example. Again, maybe Brandon Echols is on his way out, but they didn't bring in Brandon Echols for nothing. You know what I mean? They didn't. They look at Brandon Echols as a guy that's a more reliable option than the guys that they had on their roster. Otherwise, they wouldn't have signed him. And that's, to me, gives him, he's that 2B. He's that Corey Trice, then it's Brandon Echols in my head. And then there's the rest of the pack. Do you feel you feel different? You feel the same?
No, I think I feel exactly the same. I think if I had to pick my 5 right now, it would be, Jalen, JPJ, Darius Slay, Corey Trice, and probably Brandon Echols if I had to pick 5. And then, like James Pierre does nothing for me, I can take or leave him. Like, again, like if special teams is the big old concern, like you have this 7th round pick in Dante Kent, who has unreal athleticism. How good of a tackler is he on special teams? I don't know right now, but like he could probably develop into it. Danny Smith is a wizard. So I would be fine with that. It's not a real loss if you don't have James Pierre on the 53-man roster. I hold out some slight hope for Beanie Bishop just because he showed those flashes. That 2 interception game against Aaron Rodgers might not mean a lot after he gets benched, but that's enough to build a reputation around the league for being someone who can create turnovers. And look at our buddy from Fansided, who just said that he has a great shot to be on the roster because of that. When in our point of view, from our perspective, he is a bubble player at best. So, I think both of those players you could lose and not suffer huge losses in the secondary. Productivity will not go down in the secondary either, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that 5, including Trice and Echols, makes a ton more sense and fits the sort of overall theme of having like tall, rangy cornerbacks and having guys who can maybe fill out different roles. But I think I would prefer that over Pierre and Bishop.
Yes. And again, you could put guys, Dante Kent is an easy practice squad guy to put on there and say, this is good enough. Beanie's probably the same way. And James Pierre is easily the same way. So you don't have to go out and worry about these guys. Whereas in Brandon Echols, you let go of, you move on from. And I think that's the biggest thing here. Plus he's got inside capabilities. It just makes more sense. All right. With that said, guys, that's everything on our agenda. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of it, we're going to start answering all your questions. So make sure you're tossing them in the chat. We will be right back.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes Black and Gold apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
Alrighty. Shout out to all of our members. Shout out to all of our super chatters. Can't thank you guys enough. Make sure you're calling into the Wednesday call-in show. And with that said, we're going to start with good old potato salad. I have been absent from streams because I was grinding for a promotion / transfer to Orlando. Got it. But now I get to deal with moving. Anyone know any good pizza places between Orlando and Tampa? Mute in 6. That is shout out potato salad, dude. Congratulations. That's awesome. I hope you enjoy Orlando, dude. I hope it's a great time. I hope it's sunny. I hope it never rains. I hope every bit of it's fantastic. That's awesome, my man. Congratulations. Don't know any great pizza spots, but everybody give him some great pizza spots because the man deserves it. Shout out, my man. That's awesome. That is awesome. Coleslaw here. What's up, AST? Let's get it. Here we go. Good morning, dude. Great morning. I was telling Jacob that my day starts every day. My alarm goes off about 5, anywhere between 5:30 and 5:45, depending on if I hit alarm or snooze twice or once. And I get out, I roll out of bed, and first thing I do is go on a walk. I got to get outside for like at least 30 minutes. I just need to, just got to be in some fresh air. Walked outside. I was on a roll. We were like 2 weeks straight of being able to go out because it wasn't raining in Pittsburgh. Walk outside, torrential downpour. And I just sat on my porch and I said, Mother Nature, you won't win today. I will go on my walk. And it took a while, but I got on the walk. Don't you worry. So shout out. I hope everybody's having as good of a day as we are. I definitely hope everybody's having as good of a day as we are. Zach here, new member. Shout out. Make sure you're calling into the call-in show on Wednesday, and Potato Salad member for 5 months. Am I the only one who sees some Barry Foster in Caleb Johnson?
Wow. What a comparison. That's crazy. I have not even considered that. Wow.
You look like you got thoughts.
I think it's an apt comparison, to be quite honest. And I'm impressed because it is hitting me like a light bulb going off, because that's actually a really good comparison. Potato salad.
Go ahead.
No. I feel like you have thoughts. Yeah, I'll let you speak.
Yeah, I look at Caleb as a guy who's got way more like game speed and size don't typically like add up the way that you would expect it to. Caleb's the guy that moves faster, is a little bit more swift than you would expect him to be, has incredible vision. Like finding the open space is great. Getting to the open space is a whole other thing. And Caleb could surprisingly do that, which I really like. This is a throwback for sure. But to be honest, like I was talking about Caleb Johnson. I've been talking about Caleb Johnson forever, but I was on Penn Live's thing the other day talking about it as a guy who could have just one insane season. And I think that's why I think he fell because he didn't have the speed that guys like Quinshon Junkins and Trey Henderson had. And I look at him as a guy that's going to be able to move way faster than you'd expect once he's on the field and the ball's in his hand, as long as he's got open lanes, but finding those open lanes are going to be big. And I think the shiftiness is a little bit underrated.
Yeah. Do you remember what his like recorded 40 time was before the draft? I imagine it was like not impressive, right?
Probably not good.
Yeah. And that is, I think,
4.57.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I could see that scaring off some teams, but it's not like you see the film from him and you're like, he's not a 4.6 basically like 40-yard dash guy. He hits the holes real hard. And it's almost, I don't think I have no reason to believe that he would be like someone like a Le'Veon Bell, but like when I look at like the sort of shiftiness and ability to get to the hole, there is some shades of that for me, and it's maybe a more recent comparison to make as well. Not saying he's going to be the next great, dual threat running back for the Steelers, but I am very high on Caleb Johnson, as a lot of you know. But I think he is just shiftier, quicker, and more explosive than maybe he was given credit for in college.
Yes, I agree. What a poll here by Potato Salad. Nate Moore just wanted to say this is my favorite Steelers podcast, and I want to thank Noah and Jacob for all that you do. This is one of the best parts of my day. We are equally, if not more, grateful for you guys and what you bring here, because this would suck if we just sat here on a camera talking to ourselves for an hour every single day. So shout out to you guys. You guys are the best. Really can't thank you enough. Deb here, new YouTube member. Make sure you're calling into the call-in show every single Wednesday. Shout out Cody Silva. Don't cut Cordero Patterson. Our run game, as we talked about it, I don't know if you were reading the chat, but as we were talking about Holcomb and Brandon Echols, literally every single person mentioned it was just a live stream of how is this not Cordero Patterson number one on the list. But
do you think Omar Khan forgot that he's on the team? Like, do you think they just like are gonna be like, oh my god, Cordero's here, oh my god, did you call him? No, I thought Andy was calling him. No, I didn't know. Oh,
maybe. Look, I'm gonna be honest, I would not be, but as the days pass, I get less and less surprised if he's on the roster. I mean, it makes no sense, but I get less and less surprised. Shout out RN
I was
here.
being such a jerk whenever I started saying that, like when I first came on the show.
Yeah,
like I was just being a complete jerk. But no, I really think he's going to be on the team, and it's just not even. We're going to be like, what the hell?
Yeah, you want to know what's even scarier is that he's probably going to catch a podcast, and then you're going to walk into the locker room and be like, "Damn it, dude! I was so confident you weren't going to be here and pissed off at me." So
I'll just
won that one.
The other co-host of AST.
Thanks. Everybody does that anyways. So it's okay. All right. Member for 1 month. Start bench cut wide receiver edition. Randy Moss, Julio Jones, Hines Ward. This one's tough because Hines is getting cut. Stinks, but Hines is getting cut. Start Randy Moss. I mean, in my opinion, Randy Moss is I would say he's the second greatest wide receiver in NFL history. I mean, top 5, I think, without question. I think in my list, I have him right behind Jerry Rice. Then it's Julio Jones. I mean, Julio Jones was the AB before AB, and people overlook like they'll be like, oh, Julio Jones played at a weird time. Like, no, Calvin Johnson was still here when Julio Jones was around. AJ Green was supposed to be better than Julio Jones, wasn't. And then there was Julio Jones. And then there was like the AB, the Odell Beckhams, like, he did it through it all. Julio Jones, Hines, man, all respect, should be a Hall of Famer. He's got to get cut, unfortunately.
Yeah. No. Your list is bang on. Randy Moss stands above them all. Whenever a whole verb is created just based off of your last name, like you're pretty good at what you do. He's love Randy Moss so much. So yeah, start for sure him. I love Hines Ward, was like just one of my favorite players, you know, growing up and watching the Steelers. I feel like he
For
really
sure.
embodied, you know, what we all love about the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. But in those three, that is impressive company. Unfortunately, he does have to get cut.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
man, that's not a disrespect. Hines, I love you. Let's be
Yeah.
friends.
For sure. Shout out to Hines Ward. Went to dinner once with Hines Ward when I was in college. It was me, Hines, and his godson, who at the time I was friends with. And it was kind of wild, to be honest with you, because it was so casual and like I wasn't fanning out, and I was just sitting there just like, I'm eating steak right now with Hines Ward. And this is kind of nuts. This is kind of nuts. Shout out. Good guy. Nate Moore, also Skylar Thompson, probably as a cut candidate. I would say, yeah, most likely. You know, I look at Skylar Thompson. I think there's, you know, a very slim chance Will Howard doesn't make the roster. Even if Will Howard stinks, you know, he goes into training camp and he's not good, the Steelers are still going to say, well, Will Howard's a draft pick and we have to keep this kid. So Skylar Thompson will make the practice squad. Easy enough. Real easy to like shift into a Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow or, you know, Josh Allen or anybody that's mobile that you need to worry about. And I think that they'll utilize that to their advantage. David here, 2-part question. Me and a friend were thinking, could we see Joe Burrow request a trade if they miss the postseason like they did last year? I mean, maybe, but I don't see it happening. I would say that's a long. Quarterbacks requesting a trade are tough. Like, that's so tough. Especially after they get paid. Like, you don't get to decide where you're going, which is also huge. Like, you could get traded, you know, like Tennessee might end up with Joe Burrow. That's because Cam Ward is a rookie first round pick. And I'm sorry, but if I'm Tennessee, I'm giving up Cam Ward for Joe Burrow. And if I'm Cincinnati, I'm going, well, that's the best option available. So let's trade him for Cam Ward. So I think it would be tough. It's not typical. I have a hard time thinking he would. After the season.
Have you watched any of the new season of Quarterback on Netflix?
No, I want to so bad. I just haven't had time.
That is giving me all of the like this, you know, I don't want to fan over Joe Burrow. But no, actually I do want to, because he's incredible. But like watching him and like hearing him talk about the Bengals, even as they were having a horrendous 2024 season, and like where he feels like his role in it is, he doesn't want to get out of there when things are getting tough. He wants to be the reason that they win a Super Bowl. And I think he's willing to like go through whatever the peaks and valleys of that process is. And so, I have a really hard time envisioning him wanting out of Cincinnati. But I mean, you know, losing is a drain. Losing is a huge drain. So if it keeps happening, that could totally shift his view. But, you know, for now, I feel like he takes it personally when the Bengals aren't good. And I don't think he wants to get away from that. I think he wants to be held accountable for the wins and compensate for the losses by winning. So all that being said, maybe in the future, but not anytime soon would I see Joe Burrow wanting out of Cincinnati.
No, could be crazy. Cody Silva here. Need you both to join Maddie's Fantasy League. I appreciate you. She actually was the next one highlighted here. Who wants to join a fantasy football league? Jacob, I think we have to. You play fantasy football?
I was going to say, I'll join if you join.
We're in. I think we're in.
Cool.
In. Maddie, hit us up with the email. Let's get it rocking. We'll join. I'll send it to Jacob. And then we'll go from there. We're also going to do, I want to say a Pick'ems League. We're going to figure something out, but we're going to have some giant thing for everybody, all our members to join. So we want to make sure that that's a thing that comes up. Just working on it. You know what I mean? Off-season craziness, aka trying not to be crazy, is upon us right now. Lots of rest moments. David, with the second part of the question, if TJ trade becomes real, if you get a first rounder, maybe offer that same pick and a second for Trey Hendrickson and sign him to a more doable contract. Like, yes, but you're essentially just like giving up a second round pick and TJ Watt for Trey Hendrickson. And that's so like, that's brutal. Honestly, like unless you're sending TJ to like Tennessee or you play New England, so you don't want it to be New England, but it'd have to be a really bad team that isn't going to impact your Super Bowl odds at all. But I mean, at the end of the day, my theory is very simple. If you trade TJ Watt, your Super Bowl window is closed, and you will not go any further than you've gone the last couple of years in the playoffs because you don't have TJ Watt. That's, I stand pretty firm on that.
Yeah, you stand on your business there for sure. And I do too. I don't think getting rid of TJ Watt does this team any favors, and there's no scenario that I've gone through that changes my mind yet. But man, I don't like this deal because I don't like making multiple moves to accomplish the same thing. Kind of like what Noah was saying, like you would have to, you're sending out one player to get the pieces to go out and acquire the same player with a different name. I wouldn't, unless you're talking about a doable contract that is like $20 million a year, something that is like such a,
which is what he makes now.
Like right. Which is he's not going to take. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and so like that would be such a massive discount compared to the negotiation range we're talking about with the TJ Watt, that like then I see a lot of sense in that. You're like, okay, you're going to spend half the money and get maybe 2 extra years out of that player. That makes a ton of sense. Now I'm seeing the value there. But if you acquire Trey Hendrickson, you are still talking about a number that is north of $35 million per season, and will come with a similar hurdle of trying to figure out how long to guarantee the money for and the amount to guarantee. So yes, both of those things just put you in a really, you have not alleviated the issue of trying to sign an edge rusher to a long-term contract with this scenario. So it would be great value. Sure. Would probably work to get Trey Hendrickson. I don't think it does the Steelers anything to do that though.
Yeah. Even move that, like, yeah, like it's better than just losing TJ, but I think anything losing TJ, I'm anti losing TJ. Rec 7 here. If the Judkins situation is a big deal, the Browns went 2 of 3 with their delinquent draft, not preying on Dylan's downfall. But if the shoe fits or whatever, I don't know what happened with Dylan Gabriel. I don't really care to know what happened with Dylan Gabriel. And let's hope that the Judkins situation works itself out because, that's tough. I also want to make a quick note that, there were a lot of people like making jokes about this on Twitter. Not something to joke about. So let's keep it serious as we go. I mean, obviously fans could do whatever, but I saw some people that shouldn't be making jokes. And I was just, what are we doing? What are we doing? Terrible situation.
Have some decorum, damn it.
Yeah. Gotta. Maddie, I feel like our wide receiver core is going to be heavily underrated. I feel like Roman is going to do great. Am I crazy? No, definitely not. Roman could definitely be great. Do I expect him to be? I have no expectations for him yet. None. But I do feel like Roman's got some serious potential for sure. And I think everybody else, including those in Pittsburgh, feel that way heading into training camp.
Yeah, I think Roman has a ton of potential. I really do think this is going to be an impactful season from him. I think the Steelers are going to see him on the field and doing something, showing some promise, and that's going to be a huge development. One of those underrated groups, I do believe they're underrated right now, and that's mainly because I'm very high on both Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin III, but heavily underrated, I don't know if I agree with. There's a lot of really good receiving rooms in the NFL that have a lot of proven statistical wide receivers. The talent in the Pittsburgh depth chart is undeniable for sure, and I do expect bigger things to happen in 2025. But when you look at them compared to, we talk about the Texans a lot, like that is just, they have receivers who have done more statistically than anyone in the Steelers room. So besides DK Metcalf, excuse me. But
yeah,
it's hard for me to say that they are heavily underrated. I feel like they're just kind of rated, because they're so unproven, that the reputation and like sort of the view that they have right now across the entire NFL, I think is earned and appropriate. But I think there is just so much potential and room for them to outperform those expectations. So I do agree with that. But yeah, I don't think they're heavily underrated yet. I think they're going to have to show that on the field still.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there. And again, I don't think they're underrated, but I think that the potential of Roman being great is for sure there. For sure there.
Agreed.
Macaroni salad, gifting 5 All Steelers Talk memberships. Appreciate you, my dude. Can't thank you enough. Keep it trucking here with the Egyptian Roughneck. Hey, no, wild suggestion, but have you ever thought about having special fan segments where a member joins a podcast once in a while? Yes and no. It just becomes very difficult, timing wise, because you can't have, I love you guys, but the majority of people would not want to tune in to watch a fan driven podcast. And it would be tough to find another podcast to do it for. You know what I'm saying? I have thought of, and by another podcast, I mean an extra podcast during the week. I have thought of fan segments where somebody could jump on for a couple of minutes at the end of a podcast every once in a while. A lot of stuff in the works. We got a lot of expansion to do for sure. We got a lot of growth. Just this summer we started these call-in shows, and that is the first creative thing on a long list of creative things that I've got coming for you guys. So we're moving. It's all about finding the perfect middle ground. That's how it always is. It's how it always is. I am not lying though. This is just what I did this morning in terms of ideas for the podcast, and it's 9:49, and we've been on here for 46 minutes. So shout out. Cody Silva, how can we not get a wide receiver from the Bucs? Those guys are straight loaded at wide receivers, best wide receiver core in the NFL. Get one of them. It's all about who, to be honest. I think McMillan's up there. I think Trey Palmer, they obviously are interested in. I think there's another name, but you add Ibuka and it makes a lot of sense. Them and the Packers, I would expect for the Steelers to make a lot of phone calls to by the beginning of the season. Is it going to work out? I don't know. I think it's too early to know where they're going to go. And I think right now their priority is safety and not wide receiver after the Jonnu Smith trade. So will they? I don't know. I would guess that the Bucs and the Packers are the two teams they call first. Those would be my predictions.
I like that. Yeah, it is. It's so tantalizing still because there's so many good wide receivers who are lower on the depth chart on other teams, or there isn't a clear path for them to expand their roles on their current teams. And it's like, well, you could come here and you could get 50 receptions and 800 yards pretty easily here. So it's hard to not want that, but the Steelers seem to have dug their heels in on improving the secondary first, and maybe only doing that before the season begins. So I would love to see a Jalen McMillan from Tampa Bay. I think, the size is enviable. Like, he had a great season last year. He would be an incredible opposite to DK Metcalf and would give Calvin Austin, we talked about him, getting over the middle more and sort of where his skill set is with Aaron Rodgers feeding him the ball there. That would open up a lot of routes for him over the middle as well. I would love to see them bring in someone like a Jalen McMillan. I cannot get into it. I cannot buy into this idea fully, despite there being so many intriguing options around the league still. I just don't see it happening.
No, I not right now. Things could change, and it's too early. You know what I mean? We get into training camp, and 3 days in, you're going, Roman stinks. This is awful. Then that changes your complete mindset. But right now, we have no expectations, and therefore, it's a wait and see. It's a wait and see. Lindsay, I heard the Steelers are done making moves. That's from Adam Schefter. Do you guys believe that? No, I do not. The Steelers still have 2 very big holes in wide receiver and safety. I expect them to fill at least one of them. I would guess it's safety, but if the Steelers are making, here's the clearest, most evident reason that the Steelers are not done making moves. If the Steelers aren't putting Jalen Ramsey at safety, then they're going to play him at corner, meaning Juan Thornhill is going to be their starting safety. If that's the case, okay, sure. Who's their third safety? Go ahead, Jacob, tell me who their third safety is. Because it's not there. It's right now. It's Miles Killebrew, maybe Jameson. Deshaun Jameson is on there, who was on the practice squad last year. Sebastian Castro, who's a spitting image of Deshaun Elliott and probably shouldn't be a third safety. Like, it's not there. So the answer is no. Like the Steelers have not like a clear hole. There isn't a remotely close option to being on the roster right now. And you have to go fill that. So that's to me, you could argue wide receiver and whether or not they're going to make that move. Safety, they almost have to. And for that reason, they're not done.
Yeah. They weren't supposed to make any big moves in the offseason, because they missed the boat on a wide receiver last summer. That wasn't true. Minka was coming back for a bounce back year. The organization believed in him. There's no way they were going to make any other moves after getting Darius Slay. That was not true. There's no way they're going to make another move before the season starts right now because they're done. They've already went out and done it, right? No, I don't buy it. They're going to make another move. It might not be a splash like the past couple ones have been, but there's someone else getting added to this roster or another trade coming. I absolutely would put money on it because I don't understand how they go into the 2025 season, week 1 against the New York Jets with this exact group of players making up their 53-man roster. Just don't buy it.
No, I agree. Marlon Lewis here. What is your way too early depth chart for the Steelers? I think this would take, for an on-the-spot question, I don't think I can answer this truthfully. It is a fun one though, and one that we should add to the list of things we should do before training camp is do a depth chart prediction. I could give you like everybody. I could give you the offensive skill positions probably off the top of my head, but after that, it'd get way too complicated. And that's at quarterback. You could go Aaron, Mason, Will. At running back, Jalen, Caleb, Kenneth.
Say it.
I'm going to say Cordero Patterson. Cordero Patterson's there. I am. I really am. It stinks. Tight end, Pat, Jonnu, Darnell, Connor Hayward. And then at wide receiver, DK, Calvin, Roman, Ben Skoranek. And that's 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess Robert Woods, where we stand right now, but I would say sleeper. I would say Robert Woods / non-named figure right now.
Mm-hmm.
And those would be my guys, but I'd have to have the full roster in front of me. It is something we should do before
for sure
now in the season. For sure.
Yeah. I need to figure out who else plays safety.
Exactly.
Don't have a clue. Couldn't even give you a guess. The depth chart would be the people from the St. Bart's football team in my grade school. You know what I mean? Like, because I just have no other names to fill it out.
Oh, fantastic. Egyptian Roughneck. Do we know what Justin Simmons' asking price is? No, to be honest, I don't. I would imagine it's cheap. $2, maybe $3 million max for a 1-year deal. Veteran safeties usually don't go for a lot of money. Tyrann Mathieu, like the biggest name I could think of that, like year after year, he's signing 2-year, $7 million deals. I think Justin's like right in that ballpark of like a $3 million, $3.5 million for 1 year, which is a pretty good spot, for where they are.
Last year, he made 7.5 with Atlanta for what it's worth.
That's what and so, to be a free agent this long, like it's going to be less. So even if it's 4, I still think that's a pretty easy signing.
Yeah, I think guessing half of like what he made last year is probably the most he'll get
this year. Yeah.
This year. Yeah. Sorry. Didn't finish my sentence.
So I was like, did he go? Was it over? Macaroni Salad. Wouldn't extending TJ sooner rather than later make the most sense to free up cap space for future safeties / wide receiver 2? So the Steelers, I mean, yes, it obviously would, but it's not that easy, unfortunately. It's not as cut and dry. And while the Steelers want to sign TJ, like this is a negotiation and it takes 2 to tango, and TJ's got to agree to a deal as much as the Steelers have to give him one. When it comes to freeing up cap space, it probably wouldn't. It'd probably be the other way as of right now. So you're going to convert a lot of it into a signing bonus, which will be fine, but you're going to give him a massive boost in his salary, which is, I don't know what the exact numbers are going to be, but Jalen Ramsey, and the more we learn about his contract, make us realize that we're about $10 million off of what we expected the Steelers to be paying. So the Steelers have cap space to spend, and they're going to spend it. It's going to happen. And there's just, at the end of the day, that's why they're not done adding, because they're not a team that walks in with nothing. They always spend right up until about that 5 to 10 mark, and then they let it go. And then they walk into it.
Yeah, this is like where the salary cap stuff just becomes so like imaginary to me, because I'm like, yes, right? Like if you read the stuff on like Over the Cap or like follow how this would work, they would probably free up some space once the deal gets signed.
Yeah.
That makes no sense to me. I don't understand how you could sign someone to a $300 billion contract and then you get 10 million more in cap space for the year. But yeah, I think it would give them more space, but I don't think that's like the holdup at all. I think they are just not sure. Again, I don't think they're going to address the wide receiver position just yet. And I think they are probably either waiting to hear from a Justin Simmons or a Julian Blackmon about something in negotiations, or they are just saying, you know what, we're just going to hold off until we open camp because we're about a week and a half away, and then we'll make a decision at the end of July. So yeah, I think they will create more space when the deal's done. But I don't think that's the holdup for bringing in additional help.
No, I agree. Tortellini salad here. Noah and Jacob, do you see the Steelers trying to get back into the first round of the 2026 draft and get a quarterback and a wide receiver? I think anything's on the table. The Steelers are going to be pretty go get everybody that they need next season or next offseason and make sure that quarterback is in the best spot possible. They're more aggressive than they've ever been. This is not your patient, waited out Steelers. If they feel that's the best move, they'll make that move. So I mean, yes, to me, my answer is yes. I think the Steelers ending up in the first round twice next year is a possibility. What it would take to get back into there, that's the conversation to have of like, if it costs a third round pick, doable. If it costs like your second and your third, doable. If it costs your second and your second next year, maybe less doable. It's all depends on what they want.
Yeah, I think the position that comes to mind first that I would predict or maybe guess that they would want to get back into the first round for next year. Again, price determines this as well, but it would be something on the offensive line, especially if they go get their franchise quarterback. If like Isaac Seumalo moves on after this year, or if, there is the worst case scenario at either tackle position, I could certainly see them being like, all right, we just got our guy, our new franchise draft pick in the top 10. Maybe we want to bring in an extra little layer of protection here. So we're going to go out and get one of the top offensive linemen to bring in to add to Mason McCormick and along with Zach Frazier. So I can see them doing it for sure. And I agree with Noah's statements. I think everything is on the table. I think the Steelers' approach to the 2026 draft will be very, very different, and we've already seen a departure from how they used to operate. So yeah, I expect to continue seeing that kind of method of operation.
Yeah, for sure. Marlon Lewis here. Juwan Jennings wants a new contract. Could you see us linked to the Niners wide receiver again? Adam Schefter did just announce that Jennings wants a new deal, could force a trade, whatever. I think Juwan Jennings is a great name. That comes as cheap. My problem is that I don't know if he's an outside guy as much as he is an inside guy. And the Steelers seem to have a lot of inside guys, like maybe too many inside guys. And you kind of need more than that. So yeah, I think it's because my laptop needs to be updated. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here is it's just so fidgety. But I'm not going to rule out Jennings. I don't know what he wants in a deal. If he wants more than $20 million, I'd rule him out. But if it's a reasonable contract extension, maybe.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I feel like I wouldn't want the Steelers to get burned 2 years in a row by the 49ers. I like Juwan Jennings. I think that's a heck of a name to throw into the mix for a wide receiver too. I think I would be confident in what he would bring to the team for sure. I'm not really worried about the fit per se, because I would just see him as an upgrade immediately. Yeah. But oh man, I just don't think the Steelers should really touch a trade conversation regarding a San Francisco 49ers wide receiver anytime soon. I just don't think it's in their best interest at all.
You're scarred.
I'm scarred. I'm hurt, So yeah, I don't think it's the best choice right now.
There's no argument against that one. It was a long, bumpy, scary, treacherous road last year that just led to a little bit of heartbreak and then some confusing thoughts afterwards. And yeah, I agree. I love it. I love it. Pittsburgh Hornets. What's the worst take you've heard over the years? This is a great question. That again, I think I might have to like really think about the worst take I've heard ever. I mean, I'm trying to think Pittsburgh Steelers realm of things here. I mean, you could go to one radio host in Pittsburgh that like I want to give credit to. The guy draws an audience, man. And he's also very humble, very nice human being, you know, like good dude. Everything I've heard about him is very pleasant. He hyped up Kenny Pickett like he was the next coming of Christ, you know, like Tom Brady reincarnated, just arrived in Pittsburgh. And I think that's up there. I definitely think that one was for sure up there. I do.
Yeah, it's hard for me to think of like because there's probably a ton, but I'll tell you what.
Anything Colin Cowherd's ever said?
Probably, yeah. I tell you what, I will tell you what I've been super wrong about. I could recall that quite easily.
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
I was gonna and this was not. Well, I probably had wrong takes last year, but the first one that comes to mind for me, and this was before I was writing for you in any sort of capacity, was I thought Kendrick Green could be a center in the NFL.
I also did though. I also was like, this guy's a mean bulldog, man. This guy.
Yes. I was like, this guy plays aggressive. He's angry. He's a center. Yeah. False as hell. Also really liked Jarvis Jones. I have a really hard time, I think, accurately assessing first round talent once I get excited about them. I'll admit my own fault in that regard, because once I get excited about something, whether it's like a trait like Lenora Sellers, for example, like I just love his athleticism and booming arm. Like there could be things about his game that I am just completely overlooking, and like 3 times a week on here I talk about him being the next Steelers franchise quarterback. So like, you know, there's some flaws in the system. I don't know if I have the best takes all the time, but I think it's mostly about projecting players coming into the league.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Even when they're here, you know what I mean? I clear as day said that the Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowl window was open year 2 of Kenny Pickett. I mean, I said it. I talked heavily about it. I was like, this is it, man. This is how we're now. I had logic behind it, you know, of like, this is if Kenny clicks, this is it. You know, you and George Pickens are throwing between the leg dunks to each other in preseason. Like things look good. Things look good. Man, I'd have to like really sit down. I definitely swung and missed on a cut. I mean, I was real big into Devin Bush.
Everyone was.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to sit down and think, but this is a good question. Real good question. Sajan, Noah, excuse me, Noah and Jacob, are you guys going to the preseason game / doing your walkover videos for the preseason games? Yeah, I'll be at the home preseason games. Don't travel for the preseason, and we'll have walkover videos starting next week when I show up at training camp. To be honest with you, we are back. So I am super pumped for them. They're my favorite things. So I appreciate you guys. And yes, Kaboom does watch all of them and make fun of me as I walk in the press box. That's how you know you made it, pal. That's how you know. King David, is TJ expecting a fully guaranteed contract? Is that why we haven't signed him yet? No, it's not a fully guaranteed. My understanding is it's year 3 of the guaranteed money, which is his year 33 year. That's where the tie-up is. The Steelers don't want to guarantee that. TJ wants that guaranteed because Myles Garrett has it guaranteed. TJ wants more money than Myles Garrett. Like, it's just the grand scheme of things, but no, he does not. He's not looking for a fully guaranteed deal. To be honest, if you gave him a fully guaranteed deal, he'd be 36 when it's over. That might be worse than Deshaun Watson. Like there's potential to guarantee somebody that much money at that age and it go real bad. Real bad.
No contract. Even in jest, there is no contract worse than Deshaun Watson's in the NFL. But holy Lord. Yeah, you can fully guaranteed would be a nightmare. Yeah, I think it's that 3rd year seems to be a big issue. I say just give him it. Who cares?
Just
Noah cares. But Jacob
like I didn't even know how to respond to that. Like what do we you can't. There's you can't. But I do agree that like Deshaun Elliott, man, what a time. What a time. All right. And with that said, guys, we're heading out here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. With that said, we're heading out of here. Excited for the draft. Maddie, send over that information, and we will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.